Hello and welcome to the big stage for Betting Expert. I'm Shane Anderson filling in for Joe Ryan this week. And didn't we have an amazing start to the Premier League last week? There were some of the big name teams going through with great performances. We also had a couple of big name teams put in lackluster efforts and perhaps derailing what could be the early part of the season. To dissect the outcome of round one, but also focus on what's coming up this week, it's great to have Rory Jennings on the program each and every week as we do. Rory, good to catch up. No doubt you are tickled pink with Chelsea producing an outstanding performance last week, but it was amazing to see some expected outcomes certainly going the other way.
Yeah, absolutely. You are completely right. I thought Chelsea were excellent. Chelsea shone, and then you've got to remember that Chelsea have Romelu Lukaku to come back into this side. So it really is a daunting prospect for the rest of the league. But similarly to what you said there, I was very surprised at some of the other performers. I thought Manchester City were going to demolish Tottenham. Got that completely wrong, and that result at White Hart Lane has blown the title race wide open.
When we think about a team like Manchester City, who were going to that game as a red-hot favourite, what do you think that will do to the psyche of the club, the psyche of the team as they go into this week? Do you think they're in a good position to rebound quickly, or will they be panicking a little bit?
I think there is actually some cause for genuine concern at Manchester City, which sounds really weird to say when you think of the abundance of riches that they have and the brilliance that they have both on the bench, on the starting lineup, in the managerial hot seat. They are a tremendous side, but look at their last three competitive games. They lost 1-0 in the Champions League final, they lost 1-0 in the Community Shield, and they lost 1-0 at Tottenham on the opening day of the season. That is a pattern that is worrying. Are people working out how to stop them scoring? Are people realising a way to beat them? And I think they desperately need some goals. The conversation about Harry Kane will certainly gain more traction after that result. But equally, why are they so beatable? There was a time when Manchester City went on a run last year, and they won about 25 games in a row. Suddenly, they're losing three in a row without conceding, without scoring a goal. It's not good enough.
I think one of the great story points of the opening weekend of the football season was seeing Brentford, of course, beat Arsenal, a 2-0 upset result. And for the fans of Brentford, it's something that I think has united them more than ever before. It was an amazing outcome.
It was absolutely amazing. I think the weirdest thing about it, I'm not speaking for myself here, I called an Arsenal win. I was convinced that Arsenal would win that game. But I think the wider footballing consciousness said that Brentford would win that game. And that is something that I find actually very difficult to comprehend. I think we need to almost redefine what Arsenal Football Club means in our minds. Because for me, growing up through the 90s in North London, Arsenal beat Brentford. It's almost a non-starter. Arsenal will beat Brentford, whatever the competition, whatever the circumstance, whether it's a new ground on the opening day of the season and a night game, it's irrelevant. Arsenal will beat Brentford. But that isn't how it went. But more significantly, everybody thought Arsenal was going to lose that game. So it's almost like a shift has occurred with who Arsenal are.
It's actually a really good point, and it's amazing how the fans will respond to that. I mean, quite often you'll see fans rally around a team when things start to go wrong, but at the same time, if they're losing games that they are expected to win, that can actually cause a significant amount of disconnect.
Yeah, no doubt. I think Arsenal fans will not be happy with that because I think irrespective of what Arsenal fans may use as an excuse for this, whether it's the influence of Kroenke, whether Arteta is a good enough manager, whether they spent wisely in the summer, whether Ben White is worth 50 million, all questions that need to be answered. But what doesn't change at all is that Arsenal have a better starting 11 than Brentford. And the fact that they were outgunned, outmuscled, the desire wasn't there, the tenacity wasn't there, these are all things that are quantifiable, and Arsenal just came up short on every single department.
We touched on earlier about Chelsea winning so impressively, 3-0 up. We also saw Liverpool and Man United with strong performances in the opening round. So we've got three of the great clubs at the top of the table at the moment. What were your overall assessment of Liverpool's performance and also Man United?
I thought Liverpool were functional. Liverpool were good. They got the result. They're always going to beat Norwich. It's almost like a give me that game. They have such a favourable record when it comes to playing Norwich. So that one didn't surprise me. But the one that I think deserves a little bit of time and oxygen that we should discuss, it's Manchester United, because they finished last season with a whimper. You know, they lost the final against Villarreal. And I thought that was going to be quite significant as to how they went into the summer. They've obviously done some good business in the summer, but that result was huge. The Leeds versus Manchester United game is enormous. It's Leeds' first time going to Old Trafford in the league for the best part of 2 decades in front of fans. It's such a rivalry. It's the War of the Roses. It's Yorkshire versus Lancashire. It's a cross Pennines derby. The hatred is real between the clubs. And I thought that Leeds United were going to learn from their performance last year. They didn't turn up last year. They were out-thought by Solskjaer, which isn't a sentence you say too often. And I thought that Bielsa would reconnect with his side and get it right. Manchester United blew them away. And the performance of Pogba and Fernandes in the middle, when you look at what Greenwood can do, Fred is apparently the weak link. He scored a goal. The feel-good factors around Manchester United scoring goals for fun. It took a rocket from Luke Ayling to penetrate United. So they were looking fairly solid. And if they're the only goals you're going to concede this year, goals like scored like that, you're going to be fine. But Manchester United, I think it was a warning sign. It was a flare up in the air to let us know that they mean business this year.
Great assessment, I should say, there of the opening weekend. And we're going to talk shortly about what's coming up this week. But of course, it's now time for the Crunching Tackle. And Rory, the big topic of discussion this week is actually about fans' reactions. And on your YouTube channel, I know you're quite keen on this topic at the moment. You've been talking about this this week. But it's an amazing thing. We sort of touched on this at the top of the show. I mean, when you've got teams that are coming out of the blocks and they're firing, the fans can get rallying behind them really rapidly. But then at the same time, when you've got some big teams who suffer a shock loss, there's also going to be some cause for concern for quite a significant amount of the fan base. What have you made of the overall reaction coming out of the opening weekend?
I think it's amazing, isn't it? Just quite how reactionary we can all be. I'm as guilty of it as anyone else, by the way. But we can all just be so reactionary. Like off the back of one weekend, we're suddenly saying that Brentford are going to be safe. They've beaten Arsenal in a game where the conditions certainly suited them, in a game where a lot of people actually thought that they were going to win. But one result, Brentford are safe. Equally, sack Arteta. Equally, Manchester United are going to win the league. Equally, Jack Grealish has flopped. It seems to go on and on and on. And I do like it. I do find it very entertaining. But I do often also think that we just need to all take a breath, and it's going to be a long slog of a season that's going to be very enjoyable. But nothing is won, lost, decided, or set in stone after week one.
It's funny when you think about it. I mean, from my era growing up watching football, whether it be Premier League or other football codes around the world, the team I support, I tend to rally behind them all the time. But there's a fantastic article, a survey that's up on bettingexpert.com at the moment, where it actually outlines from a survey that we did, 28% of football fans will actually happily bet against their club. So there seems to be a bit of a culture shift now that betting on sport is becoming more prevalent. You can have your passion for your team, but at the same time, you may want to bet against them. There's almost like a social reassessment of how people will look at the games from where we are now.
Do you know, as well, Shane, I think I can definitely empathise with the mentality of doing that, because ultimately, if you do bet against your side and your bet comes in and your side lose, in a way you can't lose, can you? Because you can offset the disappointment of a defeat with financial gain, or you can discard the money that you've lost on the bet because your team have won and you don't care anyway. So I think it's actually quite a clever mechanism to make sure that your weekend goes perfectly. You cannot lose if you bet against your own team.
Let me ask you your assessment of where we're at. I mean, you're very active on social media, as am I. Do you think that fans these days are less forgiving when it comes to results, and they've got opportunities now to really voice a concern, perhaps when you and I were kids starting out with a passion for sport? Do you think the world's changed a little bit?
I think the world has certainly changed, yes, absolutely. I think social media has had a huge impact on the way that we consume sport and the way that we expect our heroes, the people that we idolise who play for our clubs, to behave. This kind of always on attitude, always connected, always discussing the game. It has changed it. Like there was a time when the only access was at 10:30 at night, match of the day. That was the only time you would have an opportunity to see it. Whereas there is now an ever evolving, constant conversation going on. So I think it's certainly changed it. And I also think that modern football of which social media is part. But the money that has been ploughed into modern football means that the standards are set so high, and we expect so much from these players. It's not, when you think of players that perhaps haven't lived up to their billing. Timo Werner, perhaps we could use as a case study. We signed him. He was the guy whose goals were going to take Chelsea to the Premier League title. Didn't quite work out that way. But because he came in with such expectation, because we'd seen so much of the stuff that he had done in Germany, and because he came in for £50 million, we expect immediate results. We don't take into account the fact that he's coming to a new country. There's the conditions of the world at the moment going on. So yeah, I do think that we've certainly changed, and generally you're right. I think it's not for the better, and it's certainly more unforgiving than ever.
I think the other angle too, and you touched on this, football is a massive business, and the expectation to get a result each and every week is now probably greater than ever before, because it ties into not only media rights and the opportunity for their games to be broadcast in a particular way. It certainly leads to merchandise sales. It certainly leads to tickets being sold for people to come to the stadium when they're allowed to, of course. But I think that's the big culture shift, is that everything matters now, where once upon a time perhaps you could allow a team a chance to find their feet and build some momentum. Now the expectation seemingly is always, we have to win this week, we have to win the following week, and we have to win the week after that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's relentless demands, isn't it? And that's kind of the way that football's gone. You've got to remember, a couple of years ago, Liverpool lost one game all season and didn't win the league. So it has become, the strive isn't now about winning. The strive is now for immediate perfection. And it's not necessarily for the best, I don't think. I think if you ask most people, perhaps who are over 30-ish, do they prefer football now, or do they prefer it, say, a decade and a half ago? I think most people will say that there were a lot of positives from the game a decade and a half ago. But there's nothing we can do. The business side of the game is now here to stay. And the constant conversation that goes on, the constant demand, the constant contact. That's the other thing that the modern society has done. There is now contact. Like when I was a kid and I adored Dennis Wise, I had no way of telling him that I adored him. Aside from going to the football on the weekend, that was the only way that I could ever do that. And then I would be in a crowd of 25,000 people letting him know that I loved him. Whereas now you can DM people on Instagram, and the contact isn't necessarily such a good thing either.
I think you raise a very good point there, and I think it's here to stay, and it's only probably going to keep building more and more momentum in that regard. All right, it's our time to start having a bit of a quick-fire look through some of the games coming up this weekend, and we'll start with Liverpool and Burnley. This game's scheduled for Saturday with kickoff time of 12:30. Let's have a look at the current markets that we've got available here. With the over goals for Liverpool at 2.5 goals. They're currently at 1.61, with the under there at 2.56. Head-to-head, Liverpool a very short price favourite, as you would expect. And with the Asian handicapping, with -2 for Liverpool, you're getting 2.07, with Burnley +2, 1.90. Give us your assessment here, Rory, of Liverpool-Burnley. Is this another easy win for Liverpool?
I think so. I find it very difficult to look beyond Liverpool at the moment. The fact that Mohamed Salah has started the season on fire again for the 5th consecutive year, breaking a record there, scoring on 5 consecutive opening days of the season. I think that he's going to continue to hit the ground running. Playing a side like Burnley, as good as they are, as resilient as they are, I think the class in this Liverpool team will tell. And people don't seem to be acknowledging Liverpool for potential title contenders. Generally, the general consensus seems to be maybe Chelsea, maybe Man City, maybe Manchester United, but nobody seems to be giving Liverpool the credit they deserve. They are definitely capable of winning this Premier League.
All right, give us your overall assessment. How easy did they win?
I think it will be fairly convincing. I will go for a 3-0 win.
All right, 3-0 win. That's a thumping result. We'll quickly have a look at perhaps the overall assessment from our betting expert community too, to get their views. I know Joe Ryan's also siding with you, even though Joe's on leave this week. He sent through his tips. He thinks it's going to be a 3-0 victory. And the betting expert match bet, the community has chosen Liverpool -1.5. Currently getting odds of 3 to 5 there. That is the bet of our match. So looks a good option. Let's move on now to the second game, and that is Aston Villa up against Newcastle. As we have a look at the head-to-head, Aston Villa at 1.85 with Newcastle at 4.5. Under 2.5 goals, you're getting 1.8 for Aston Villa. And in the Asian handicap with a minus 0.5 there for Aston Villa, you're getting currently 1.81. You with Villa here, Rory, or do you think it could go another way?
I've gone for a 2-2 draw here, actually. I think that Newcastle were fairly unlucky on the opening day. I know they conceded 4 goals at home, but the penalty wasn't a penalty, and that had a huge impact on the game. Equally, they were very unlucky. I think Matt Ritchie switched off. They shouldn't have conceded from that penalty. It was an excellent save from the keeper. Matt Ritchie has just switched off and allowed the tap-in to occur. But I think that there was enough there to suggest they will be okay. And Villa had a shocking start. So I think a 2-2 draw I've gone for here.
All right. Do you think there's a broader overreaction to perhaps how Villa performed last week and what that could do for them over the coming weeks?
Well, yes, there is definitely the overreaction, because what we're already hearing is because they were, the game was practically out of sight before it started for them, which was so surprising and so weird. But a narrative that came off the back of that was quite entertaining. It was, they can't survive without Jack Grealish. And I think they did score 2 goals away from home, which is, what Jack Grealish is good at, creating chances, scoring goals. So it didn't necessarily have that impact at all. So there is an overreaction there, I think. But equally, I do think that Villa, I think people try and spin the Jack Grealish sale as something good. We've sold Jack Grealish, and we've bought in Buendia, we've bought in Leon Bailey, we've bought in Danny Ings. Maybe we're stronger. And I just don't subscribe to that at all. I think what Jack Grealish is worth to the club is so much more than what he brings on the pitch. He's the heartbeat of the club. He is the answer to almost every question about Aston Villa. Why would Aston Villa survive Jack Grealish? Why could Aston Villa attract some elite level players? Jack Grealish. Why do people want to go to Villa Park and pay in excess of £50 for a ticket? Jack Grealish. So I think that what he brings on the pitch is significant, but it's what he brings off it that they have now lost that is also a big deal.
All right, let's recap the selections for this week. Rory's gone for a 2-2 draw between Villa and Newcastle. Joe Ryan has gone for a 2-1 win for Villa. And as we have a look at what our betting expert community feels for the match bet, they've come up with 3.5 goals, over 3.5 goals as the top tip of the week, and you're getting a price of currently 2-1. So I think that certainly does look a good option for those who want to follow the betting expert community. Let's move on now to Crystal Palace and Brentford. And this looks a fairly evenly matched head-to-head contest here. Currently Crystal Palace at 2.75, Brentford at 2.94. If you're taking over 2.5 goals, you're getting 2.4. Under 2.5 goals, 1.67. And on the Asian handicap, Brentford with plus a half currently is the favourite option there at 1.5. Brentford currently sitting in 6th. Palace well down the table. Rory, give us your assessment.
I've gone for a Brentford win here. I think that they're going to follow on from what they did against Arsenal with another 2-0 win. I thought they were brilliant against Arsenal, but that result will galvanise them. It will really make them believe that they can accrue the 40 points that they would desperately need. And Crystal Palace for me they're a worry. I think that Patrick Vieira coming in, on one side it's quite a clever, astute appointment. On another side, the track record is not impressive at all. And therefore, I think that they could be in trouble. And I think that Palace are going to lose this one 2-0.
All right. Overall, though, what did you make of the scoring shots from both teams in the opening round? And do you think that will have an impact on this game? Do you think it'll be a game that could be more tactical than perhaps quite aggressive?
Yes, I think it will be a tactical occasion. I think that both teams will be going into this game not wanting to lose. I think a draw isn't a bad result for either side, really. So I think that they will both be approaching it with the aim of not being beaten. But I do think that Frank is a better tactician than Patrick Vieira. And I mean, I think that history has taught us that. So Patrick Vieira could certainly change my opinion if he were to have a good campaign here. But the data that we've got so far, Frank is the man.
Frank's the man. You're going for a 2-0 win to Brentford. Joe Ryan, let's have a look at his selections too. Joe's gone for a 2-0 win. He's siding with Crystal Palace. As we have a look at the betting expert community selection for our match bet, the community is going for Brentford plus 0.5 in the Asian handicap. So basically, Brentford or a draw at 2-1 on. So 1-2 there looks a good option. Let's move on to the next game in the week, and that is Leeds versus Everton. Kickoff time 3 o'clock on Saturday. And Everton currently sitting in 5th position. Everton down the bottom. Everton in 5th position. Leeds currently down the bottom of the table. Overall performance assessment from last week, Rory, on these teams, and how do you think this will play out?
A very big win for Rafael Benitez. Very needed, desperately needed as well, just to try and pacify the Goodison Park faithful. I thought that was a very good result. And Leeds, I was surprised. It was a humbling. I know that we have to take into account that Leeds were without both Llorente and Calvin Phillips, and they were magical for them towards the end of last season. So that won't be the case, hopefully, for too long. So that will change the entire complexion of Leeds United. But it wasn't good enough. And this contest, I mean, it's a good one, isn't it? Benitez versus Bielsa. It's the pragmatist versus the purist. I think it's exciting, but I actually think they're going to end up cancelling each other out. I've gone for a 1-1. What do you think?
Yeah, 1-1 I think makes a lot of sense. But it was fascinating sort of watching both being involved in high-scoring games last week and what that will do coming into this week. And I think you touch on a good thing. It might end up sort of cancelling out their approach to tactics throughout the game.
Yeah, I think so. I think that Marcelo Bielsa is, he's so loyal to his belief in the way that football should be played, sometimes to the detriment of his team. But I think even he will go into this week, a man that is so rigid to his principles, but even he will look at what happened last week, conceding 5 on the opening day, and deduce that something needs to change, and keeping it tight has got to be a priority for Leeds here. And that's how Benitez will line up. Benitez will be going into this one aiming to win it 1-0. So I feel like a 1-1 is fairly good value.
All right, you've gone 1-1 for Leeds and Everton. Let's have a look at Joe Ryan's selections as well. He's gone for a 2-1 victory, but he's siding with Everton there. And as we have a look at what the betting expert community feels after 2 rather high-scoring teams, basically we're having a look at the community's best bet of under 3.5 goals. Currently at 5-4 on, or 4-5 there is the selection. So that's exactly 3 goals. It is a push coming through the betting expert community. Let's move on to the next round, the next game of the round, I should say. And we've got Manchester City up against Norwich. Manchester City, of course, a shock performance last week, currently in 13th position, and Norwich now in 19th position, second from the table. So we have a look at head-to-head, though. It is expectations aplenty that Man City will bounce back in a big way. Long odds-on favourite, very short price favourite, currently at 1.1. Over 3.5 goals, you've got 1.9. Under 3.5 goals, 2.10 if you want to go in that direction. And, of course, in the Asian handicap, Man City under 2.5, you're getting 1.92, with Norwich over 2.5 at 1.98. Surely this is a big bounce-back win here, Rory, for Man City.
Totally agree, Shane. I think this is the one. This is where we're going to get goals galore. I think everything that we said about Manchester City earlier, the fact that they hadn't scored for 3 consecutive games, that's over. They will use this game as an opportunity to announce to the world that they're back, that they mean business, and that they found their goal-scoring form. I expect big things from Jack Grealish, and this will be the day that they strike fear into the rest of the league.
How many goals will they win by? Pressure's on.
I've gone for 4, which I think is a fairly conservative estimate. I was genuinely toying with the idea of going big, really big, 6s, something like that. But I've gone for 4. So I think that they'll win the game 4-0. But and it could be a cricket score.
All right, could be a massive result here as we recap the selections for this week. Rory 4-0 going with Man City. Joe Ryan certainly siding with Man City, but he's a little bit more conservative there. He's actually going for 2-0. And as we have a look at what the betting expert community feels going into this game, the best bet from our community also sees this as one as which Man City should really score a thumping win. They're going for the minus 2.75 on the Asian handicap. Currently getting odds of 6-5 there, so hopefully that'll be a good result for all those pushing hard for Man City, but it certainly does look to be a one-sided affair in that contest. Next game to talk about is Brighton v Watford, and this does look to be a fairly evenly matched contest here based on momentum coming out of week 1. Watford currently sitting in 7th on the table, Brighton in 8th, but when you actually match that up to what the market's telling us, Brighton is a relatively short price favourite, currently at 1.8. Watford's at 5.9 in the head-to-head markets. Over 2.5 goals, you're getting 2.3. Under 2.5 goals at 1.69. So it looks to be a fairly tight contest in that regard based on what the market's telling us. And from an Asian handicap perspective, Brighton at minus 0.5, currently at 1.77 with Watford at plus 0.5 at 2.16. Give us your assessment here, Rory. Do you think it'll be a tight affair?
I certainly think it will be a tight affair, but I think it will be a little bit of an upset. I think Watford are going to win it 1-0. I think Watford will just be a little bit more ruthless. It's not going to be a pretty affair. And the way that Brighton will hope to play the game, they'll have their expansive style, they'll knock it about beautifully, but they're not ruthless enough. It's something we've been saying about Brighton now for 3 years. They're not ruthless enough in front of goal. Obviously, they brought in Danny Welbeck. He's now injured. I think they're going to struggle to score goals, and I think there is a vulnerability there. Obviously, they lost Ben White, and I can see Watford exploiting that. It won't be pretty, but it will be 1-0 Watford.
All right, 1-0 Watford then. You're getting a decent price about Watford, particularly in the head-to-head markets. Just one last sort of question on Watford before we move on. Do you think they actually might be able to build a bit of momentum off what they did round one, going into what you expect them to do this week? Could they be a team that could keep sneaking through a little bit?
Well, that's part of the reason that I've put them down for a win this week. I think they got such a good result last week against the odds. Nobody was expecting that, and they were brilliant. They blew Villa right out of the water. So the fact that they were so good last week, it would almost make a mockery of the brilliance that they displayed last week to not capitalise on it. And playing Brighton is the perfect way to capitalise on it. So they need it. It's almost a season-defining game for them. If they are to get 3 points again, 6 points, they are well on their way to potential survival. If they don't, it's 3 points out of those 2 games. It's probably what you'd sort of expect them to get, 2 or 3. And the relegation battle is well and truly on.
Yeah, good point you raised there. So you're going for a 1-0 victory there, Watford over Brighton. Joe Ryan's going the other way. He thinks it's going to be quite an easy victory, 3-0. He's thinking Brighton will win. I know it's a confident push there by Joe.
Bold statement.
Well, he's talking a big game, but he can do that when he's on annual leave. So
Exactly.
I think it'll be a lot closer than what Joe thinks. I tend to side with you. I think we might see a bit of an upset result there, but with Watford coming out on top. But let's have a look at what our betting expert community thinks going into this game. And our community found a bet that isn't to do with the winner of the match, but they're going for under 2.5 goals. So it's suggesting that it's going to be a pretty tight affair on the pitch throughout that afternoon. So should be a good contest, though, and hopefully I do like it when you can see teams that can sort of work their way through against expectation. I do hope Watford are in for a good season ahead. Let's move on to the next game. We've got Southampton up against Man U. Of course, Man U sitting on top of the table after that outstanding performance last week, and we talked about them quite extensively early. Man U currently at 1.62 head-to-head market against Southampton. If you want to take under 2.5 goals, you're getting 1.74 with I should say over 2.5 goals at 1.74, under that margin at 2.23. And of course, in the Asian handicap, Southampton, +1, you're getting 1.75. Man U at 2.08 for under 1. Give us your assessment here. Will this be another easy victory for Man U? Rory, we were talking a little bit earlier. I mean, the expectations are that they will keep going and going and going based on what they did in the opening weekend.
Yes, again, though, I think this is the perfect fixture for them. They had the tough game, in theory, against Leeds United. They've made light work of that, and now they've got the fixture that they would dream of. Going to Southampton, I think Hassan Hutel gets such a favourable press, and I really don't understand it. I don't rate him. I think he's proved that he's not up to it. I think he's so limited with what he can do. He rarely changes a game, and I think Southampton are in real trouble this year. I think Southampton could be dark horses to go down, and Manchester United are going to find this one very easy. I think it'll be 3-0 to Manchester United.
Like it, 3-0 to Man U from Rory. Joe Ryan's actually thinking it's going to be easier than that. He's going 4-0 Man U. So he's expecting them to really smash their opponents this week. But let's have a look at what the community bet for Betting Expert. And the community bet is United to win. You're currently getting 15-8 on. And I think, look, the reality is that does look a pretty safe bet, Rory. I think with the top of the table leader at the moment, looking to be in such imperious form going into this season. Well, that's a wrap of our quickfire predictions for this weekend. Let's have a look at now some of our deep dive analysis in some of the key games. And Rory, We will start with Wolves v Tottenham. It certainly does look to be a really interesting contest here. If we go into the head-to-head markets, Wolves are currently 3.5, Tottenham at 2.3. If you want to go over 2.5 goals, you're getting 2.34. If you want to go under, so a fairly tight game there, you're getting 1.71. But if you want to go the Asian handicap route, Wolves at plus half, currently at 1.68. Tottenham at minus 0.5, you're getting 2.29. So Tottenham and Wolves coming to this contest. Coach Nuno, he's been talking about Harry Kane, Rory, and he may be a potential to play. What's your view? Do you think he will play?
I don't think he'll play, no. I really don't. I think it's a mess, isn't it? The whole thing is a mess. I saw yesterday that Harry Kane has sacked his brother. Charlie Kane is now looking for new work as he's employed a proper PR firm. It's been handled terribly, and it's so damaging to Tottenham Hotspur and their aspirations this season. And isn't it typical that this is the fixture that comes up? Nuno against his old club. Does he play Kane? I doubt it, because they got a good win. They got a massive win against Manchester City without Kane. So I am unsure whether we will see him. But it's not going to be easy against Wolves. I think it's going to be a tough fixture for Tottenham, because I think that the entire stadium was so supportive of Tottenham because of the Kane thing. I think it's pulled everybody else together. But now they're going into where they will expect to win. It changes the demands, and the expectations are different. So it will be a tough one for Tottenham, this, I think.
What are you expecting to see on the pitch? Do you think it'll be sort of a counter-attacking environment, or what type of game do you think will unfold?
I think that Tottenham are going to find it very, very difficult, because we know from Nuno time at Wolves that he likes to sit back. It's Mourinho-esque, isn't it? It's Mourinho-esque. Sit back and then let the brilliant players in your side do what they can do. Get it to Traore. When you had Raul Jimenez, Jota, let them do what they can do, but make sure that you keep it tight. That is so not in keeping with the Tottenham Hotspur tradition. And they are a club, Tottenham Hotspur are a club that truly believe that football should be played in a particular way. You know, they always sing songs about Gareth Bale. He was born to play for Spurs, the way we play the game. Hoddle and Waddle, the history of Ardiles. They're a club that truly embrace the traditions of what they believe in. And that isn't in keeping with Nuno Espirito Santo at all. So it will be interesting to see how he lines up, how he shapes up. But if he thinks that he'd get away with it, if he thinks that the faithful are going to allow him to defend deep against sides like Wolves, I think there's going to be some angst at whatever stadium they're playing in, because that isn't how it will be. They like a swashbuckling approach to the game, so I think Nuno will have to be a little bit more adventurous.
With all the drama around Harry Kane, what do you think that's doing to the rest of the team? Do you think that they're struggling to try and think of, what the season ahead's going to be like, or can they put that aside and just concentrate on what they need to do?
I think it's a distraction. It's a massive distraction. It's a mess as well, the whole handling of it. I mean, all this talk about the gentleman's agreement, which, I mean, it's total nonsense. I mean, that's something that you'd hear in Peaky Blinders or something. I just can't quite understand how they've let it get into this situation. And it's now getting to the stage where, do Tottenham want to keep him? Like, genuinely want to keep him? Or do they want to sell him for the right price? I don't know if the bridge is broken, like, which Kane could re-ingratiate himself with Tottenham fans. Will they give him? I think Tottenham fans will be fairly scorned and hurt by this, because they loved him so much. Love and hate can be very close emotions, can't they? So I don't know. I think that this is a very difficult one for Tottenham, and they need to get it right. I think that ultimately, whatever they do, whether they keep him and try and make him a pivotal part of their season, or whether they offload him and try and get the money in, they have to do it soon and get this over the line, because the uncertainty is doing nobody any favours.
Yeah, you raise a very good point there, and I think the fact that it's still taking so long to sort itself out is got to be problematic for all concerned, whether it be Harry Kane, but certainly everyone else involved in the team. When we talk betting markets for this game, it does look to be fairly tight, and it does look to be a low-scoring affair. Do you think it'll be that case?
Yes, it almost certainly will be. I mean, I think Wolves have an opportunity here, and I've gone for a 2-1 win, Wolves. but low amounts of goals, low amounts of drama. I think that this is one that will be a very cagey affair, a chess game more than a football game.
All right, 2-1 from Rory. Joe Ryan's going the other way. He thinks Tottenham's going to win 2-0. So it could be a comprehensive victory to Tottenham, according to Joe. Let's have a look at the betting expert Bet Builder. And you probably won't agree with our community Bet Builder, in which we have under 3 goals and Tottenham to win at 10-3. So you're getting 4.33 with Bet365. That gives an implied probability of 23%. So would you say that the chances of Tottenham win under 3 goals is more than that, Rory, or do you think it's perhaps going the other way?
I think Wolves can sneak this, but I do like the under 3 goals thing. I think that it's going to be such a tight affair. Nobody's going to want to lose it. The Nuno going back to his old club always adds a different dimension. It makes it very tense. So yeah, I think under 3 goals is a really good bet, but I just think that Tottenham could shade it. Sorry, what am I talking about? I scrap that. I never say that. I can never say that's blasphemy in this house. I think Wolves can shade it.
Beautifully done. Let's go on to the next game, and no doubt this is the one that you're feeling a bit excited about, because we see Arsenal up against Chelsea. Chelsea outstanding last week, currently second on the table. Arsenal struggling on what we saw in the opening round, currently sitting 17th on the table. So we go the head-to-head. Chelsea certainly the clear favourite here at 1.83 over Arsenal. If we want to go the over 2.5 goals route, you're getting 2.10. Under 2.5 goals route, 1.83. Don't mind a look at that over 2.5 goals market there. And if you want to take the Asian handicap option, Arsenal at plus 0.5, 2.09. Chelsea minus 0.5. You're getting 1.84. You're mad, passionate, crazy about Chelsea, Rory. Is it going to be a thumping win for them?
Oh, gosh. Do you know what? This one, it worries me. There have been so many occasions where Chelsea have gone into this fixture as favourites. I mean, last season is a great example. We were all talking about Mikel Arteta being sacked when Frank Lampard beats Arsenal just before Christmas. That's the way that the game was portrayed. That's how it was shaping up. And that didn't happen. I mean, Granit Xhaka scored the goal of his life, and it really didn't go our way. So, with that in mind, I tread carefully around this fixture. I'm old enough to remember when Arsenal, whatever Chelsea did, Arsenal did more. You know, we'd scored 2, Kanu would score 3, Silvinho, their left back, scoring an equaliser, Nigel Winterburn scoring a winner. It was always a disaster. So I tread very carefully around this fixture. However,
who do you look at being the key players, though, then, Rory? If you're concerned from as a mad, passionate Chelsea fan, you're always inclined to be a little bit worried when your team's in an environment like this. But based on what you know, who do you think the key players will be going into this game?
I hope it will be Romelu Lukaku. You know, Romelu Lukaku was at Stamford Bridge yesterday. There was an open training session. He looked fit. He looked hungry. He intimated in his Q&A with the fans, he intimated that he was going to play. So I think that if Romelu Lukaku plays up against Pablo Mari and Ben White, I mean, Ben White must have been looking around him the other day at Brentford. You know, he was looking around and he saw Callum Chambers and Pablo Mari and that keeper. He must have been thinking, God, where's Lewis Dunk? Please bring Lewis Dunk back into this, back into my life. Because I think that Arsenal defence could be ripped into shreds if Chelsea get it right. You know, if Kai Havertz pulls the strings the way that we know he can, if Mason Mount starts picking out the passes well and making those late runs into the box, and if Romelu Lukaku plays, that's where the game will be won and lost. Arsenal's defence is so flimsy and Chelsea's attack is so potent. That should be the deciding factor.
Take your Chelsea cap off for a moment. What do Arsenal have to do to win this game? And who do you think will be the key players that could cause an upset?
I think what they need to do, the answer to get Arsenal playing well is actually a very simple one. They have some fantastic players in the team who, for one reason or another, aren't being selected. Aubameyang is one of the best strikers in the league. Okay, he hasn't displayed that form lately, but he is still one of the best strikers in the league. Lacazette, a handful on his day. And Mikel Arteta, I think, needs to massage the egos, be more clever, work out a way of getting the best players on the pitch and get them playing well. And if Arsenal do that, they can beat anybody. It's just a case of making sure that his team are fit and get that spine through the team. Get Thomas Partey in there, get him pulling the strings. pair him up, get that partnership with Xhaka working, and then let the top tier players, the elite level players, let them flourish.
All right, let's go for your selections then. Chelsea by how much?
2-0, Lukaku getting a brace.
Love it. 2-0 from Rory, Chelsea to win. Joe's actually siding with you, Rory. He also thinks Chelsea will win 2-0. But let's have a look at the bet builder coming through from our betting expert community. And they're going for Chelsea to win, both teams to score, Lukaku to score any time. So they're hoping he's going to be back in. You're currently getting 9 to 2, 5.5 on Bet365. And I think it does actually look to be quite a good bet, because I think there is an enormous amount of groundswell coming through for Chelsea to win that game. So are you comfortable with that bet builder selection there, Rory?
I like it. I think it's a good shout, actually. There's something in that for sure.
All right, superb. We move on to the final game that we're going to put in some detailed analysis around, and that, of course, is West Ham and Leicester, which is on Monday, kickoff time at 8 p.m. And it certainly does look to be a fairly evenly matched contest as we have a look at the markets here. Head-to-head, West Ham 2.63, Leicester at 2.75. If you go over 2.5 goals, so it could be a bit of a goal fest here, you're getting 1.83. If you're going under 2.5 goals, 2.10. And in the Asian handicap, both at 0, West Ham and Leicester. West Ham is at 1.93, Leicester at 1.97. So both had a pretty good start to the season. And it's great to be able to welcome to our show today Dan Lawless, who's from West Ham Fan TV. He's going to help us analyse this game. Dan, great to catch up. Appreciate your time. First of all, give us your backstory. How did you become a West Ham follower?
Just grew up around the area. It's one of those things, where I lived, you could hear the crowd in the stadium from where I lived. So, and my family's all been West Ham fans. So, you got to be a West Ham fan. So that's pretty much how it is, mate.
What did you make of the start to the season? No doubt you've got a smile on your face at the moment.
Yeah, do you know what? We did a watch along on our channel, and I was panic stations at the start, but it was, by the end of it, unbelievable game of football, exciting, scoring 4 goals. I was more than happy with that. It was a place at Newcastle where we don't always do too well. So great start to the season. We haven't won our first game of the season in like 5 years either. So that was nice.
But put that aside, there seems to be a bit of momentum gathering around the fan base for West Ham at the moment. Things look to be on the upward spiral for you. What's the vibe like with you and your fellow fans?
It's very mixed. In terms of the pitch, what's happening on the pitch, what we've seen, the starting 11, there's a lot of positivity around the starting 11, the manager and things like that. There's just a lot of just anxious energy over the transfer window and the lack of activity in the transfer window, because when you look at our I'd put our starting 11 up against most teams in the league, obviously with the exception of the elite teams. But apart from that, our squad depth is so thin, and with the additional European games, it gives me a lot of worry. And Antonio is brilliant. I love Antonio. Look, he's just become a joint top Premier League goal scorer. However, he's almost a guarantee to get injured this season. And he's also going away with Jamaica in January, and we have no other strikers, which is very worrying. So if he gets injured now, we're in trouble. And then when he goes away with Jamaica, we're going to be in trouble. We have to get a striker in.
Well, Dan, as we said at the top of this segment, this does look from a betting perspective to be one of the tightest matches, if not the tightest match of the round. What are your expectations going into Monday night?
Yeah, I expect Leicester to, they're going to be a lot of more of a tougher team than Newcastle. Newcastle was pretty tough. Although at the same time, I think we'll do well against their defence. I think we've got enough threat there. I just worry about Leicester's ability to put some of those balls over the top and catch us out at the back. We've got players like Dawson, who's not the fastest, and you put Vardy up against them. I do think they'll score, but it's our first home game back, full stadium with the fans. I think the fans will be up for it. I think the team will be up for it, and I think there's a real cohesiveness to this team. There's a bond there that I think they're enjoying playing with each other. They're getting an understanding. I think players like Ben Rama will be creating a lot of chances for Antonio, and I think he's going to cause them problems. So I'm feeling slightly confident, but as a West Ham fan, there's always a thing in the back of my mind where I'm always worried, and I can never go into it being completely confident. So I do feel like we could win this one.
Rory, as I bring you back into the conversation as well, Dan's just made, I think, a good point. When teams start to gel, they start to play with a bit of confidence, great things can happen. What impressed you the most about West Ham last week, and what are your expectations going into this game?
I think it was a resilience. They were losing the game twice away from home. On the first day of the season, the first time St James's Park has been packed, they were losing that game twice and still came out of it scoring 4 goals with 3 points. Like that is a statement from West Ham. And I found it quite interesting, actually, listening to Dan there, because I didn't realise that the vibe was not quite as optimistic as I thought it was. I thought that the mood was really buoyant around West Ham. You know, they're going on a European tour, started the season with a win. But of course, hearing the first-hand account there, I do understand it. And yeah, without Antonio, there is a problem. I'm surprised that they haven't been more active in the transfer market, particularly considering the impressive season that they had last year.
Dan, do you think when you're hearing, someone who's got an overall view of not only the league, but it's also passionately linked to another team in Chelsea, when you hear that sort of analysis, when they're thinking there perhaps is more cohesive fan support happening at the moment, is it something that you think will rally and build, particularly if West Ham can win this week?
Yeah, look, I think when it comes to in the stadium and when we get there, I think the fans will be up for it. I mean, you could hear the fans at Newcastle just loud as anything, drowned out the Newcastle fans. I think we'll be up for it just because we miss going and supporting our team. So from that aspect, I don't think that the anxiety we have over the transfer window will trickle out into the stadium. But it's one of those things. It's just fans are waiting for transfers to happen. I think Areola is a very good signing, very good goalkeeper, can replace Fabianski. However, that wasn't the position that we really needed. You know, we really need a centre back. We really need a striker or two. So that if deadline day comes and the window closes and we haven't addressed those problems, there's going to be a lot of tension and a lot of animosity towards the board that I think then, the neutral fans will maybe start to be more aware of. Protests are still going on. So we're still wanting to get Golden Sullivan out. And that's the thing. We look at what's happening on the pitch. We give Moyes the credit because he's doing it in spite of a lack of investment from the owners. So yeah, it's a weird vibe, and we've got this perspective takeover from Pi Capital as well and they've not been doing well to convince the fans. It's a bit of a mad feeling at West Ham at the moment. There's so much going on.
What's been your view since Moyes has taken over at West Ham? They certainly look to be playing fairly aggressive football.
Yeah, I mean, when Moyes came back, I wasn't his biggest advocate when we brought him back. I thought he was very pragmatic the first time around when we was going against Stoke at home and they were like the worst team in the league and was playing defensively. I wasn't a fan of it, but he's come back now and shown that now he can be the permanent manager and the main man and give him some time. Like you said, he's playing some very entertaining football, much better football than Pellegrini was playing. I was quite bored by Pellegrini's constant passing into the back of the net way of playing. But like you said, it's a lot more aggressive. He's, I think, got the team playing well. He's got the team playing with confidence. And to Rory's point earlier about the Newcastle game, to come back from behind, we've been seeing that quite a lot this season, not knowing when we were beat. Before, it would be like, the first goal would go in, heads would drop, and you'd waiting for the next one and the next one. Now it's that constant, like I said, resilience to come back. So yeah, I am enjoying the football under Moyes. I have to say. So I think the fans are all behind him, and I think he's doing a great job.
Rory, let's talk about Leicester on the other side. I mean, they're a side that should be scoring goals. They should be able to put the ball in the back of the net, but I think they only scored once from 8 shots last week. What do they need to do this week?
Yeah, I think it's difficult for Leicester, isn't it? Because they need to prepare for life post Vardy, and yet Vardy is still probably their best striker. I know Iheanacho looked good. He scored against his former club Man City in the Charity Shield, but I think that they're in a very difficult position because they've been knocking on the door for top four for such a long time. that they now need to get there. Brendan Rodgers needs to get there because it's becoming a little bit of a monkey on his back, but I don't think they're going to be strong enough to do it. And they're kind of stuck in a bit of limbo because they're clearly better than most other teams in the league, but I don't think they're going to be able to break into the top four. The injury, obviously, to Fofana was huge, set them back. But I don't quite know what they're going to be able to do. It feels insurmountable. I don't think they can get into the top four. But this is where Brendan Rodgers is going to have to get it right and prove me wrong, because this is what I've been saying about him for such a long time. I've said he's good, but he's not good to the promised land.
To try and get them scoring goals, do you think they need to go down the path of introducing a two-striker system to the team, or what would be your view on that?
I think they could potentially do that, but I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because the way that they shape at the moment, the way that they get support round Vardy or round Iheanacho, it works for them. You know, you've got somebody like Tielemans pulling the strings, and then it's the support that floods forward in the right opportunity. To totally change the shape in order to try and get more attackers on the pitch, to try and score more goals, I'm not sure if it would take away from a lot of the other stuff that they do that's decent. But I do think they're going to have a good season, Leicester. You know, they won the FA Cup for the first time in their history last year. They're going into Europe. There's a lot to be positive about. It's just that they have such high aspirations that, I mean, it feels ridiculous, but I'm saying that they're going to underachieve this year, and I think they'll finish fifth.
Fair assessment. All right, let's get some selections for the game. Dan, I'll start with you. Who wins?
Yeah, look, I'm gonna back my team. Gonna back West Ham. I think we can win this one. First home game back. Fans are gonna be up for it. The team's gonna be up for it. We're gonna be full of confidence from coming back, and I think we can win. I think we can win 2-1. I think it'll be a bit tighter. I think they're probably a little bit defense, probably a bit better than Newcastle. So I'm gonna back us to say 2-1.
All right, I like it. Tight game, 2-1 victory to West Ham. What are you doing, Rory?
I think West Ham win as well, but I think it will be a little of an end-to-end game. I've gone for a 3-2 West Ham win.
All right, 3-2 from Rory Jennings. And Joe Ryan, he's actually going for a draw. 2-2 draw from this contest between West Ham and Leicester. Let's have a look at the bet builder from our betting expert community. West Ham to win or a draw, scoring over 2 goals for the game. Both teams to score. You're currently getting odds of 21-10 or around 3.10 with Bet365. Certainly, to my eye, looks like that could be a pretty good outcome because it does look to be a tight affair. Rory, do you agree with that bet builder?
Yeah, I think it's a nice shape to it. I think we've all predicted that there'll be goals in this, haven't we? So yeah, it should be a good one.
Super. Dan, thanks for joining us today. Good luck to you and all of the fans associated with West Ham. Certainly hope it's a successful season. We hope to catch you again soon.
Thanks, guys. And good luck with the show. Really enjoyed being on. And have a great season.
Fantastic. Dan Lawless joining us there from West Ham Fan TV, and really appreciate having members of the fan community through the Premier League joining us here on the big stage. All right, Rory, it certainly does look to be a fantastic week ahead, coming up with some key games. Let's go back and reflect on the overall selections. Now, I have to point out, and Joe has actually sent me about 5 text messages since we've started recording this, just to remind everyone that he had a better start to the season than you. He's actually up 8-3 on you out of the opening round. So hopefully you can do better for him this week, and I can push back on Joe. But let's have a look at the recap of selections and an overall assessment, Rory. Who do you think the main focus points will be from a game perspective this week?
I think all eyes will be on North London, won't they? Chelsea going to Arsenal is huge. I think that is the one that people are really going to talk about and focus on. But it's an exciting programme all across the board. I mean, Liverpool going to Burnley, do they maintain their form? It's going to be very exciting. Manchester United at Southampton screams goals to me. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be top. But I think that the jewel in the crown this weekend is the events of North London as Chelsea slap up Arsenal.
Superb. Love it. All right. Well, of course, you can follow Joe and Rory's selections on bettingexpert.com. And it really was a phenomenal start to the Premier League last week by the lads with an overall 9.2 unit profit from a 10 unit stakes. It's an outstanding result. And hopefully we can keep building some momentum going forward this week. Rory, great to catch up. Look forward to catching up with you again next week on the big stage. Enjoy the football.
Loved it. Thank you so much. Cheers, everyone. Cheers, Shane.
There's Rory Jennings here on the big stage, and we certainly hope you've enjoyed today's coverage. And of course, if you don't agree, make sure you let us know who you think will win. Post your selections. You can do that. Of course, go to bettingexpert.com and be involved in many of the competitions we have running on that site. Of course, we've got some great editorial coverage there as well. And we certainly want to know your comments on each and every edition that we have here of the big stage. Hope you've enjoyed today's edition. We'll see you next week.